As an artist, there comes a point in a time to where you have written your music and you want to record it. And if you haven't gotten to that point,
what are you doing?
So after recording, the very next thing you want to be able to do is send your tracks to go get it mixed and mastered. And in this video, I'm going to tell you, show you, and teach you how to send your tracks to a mix engineer so he will love you
and call you Big Papi.
Alright, so first things first, I'm going to have a new project here to show you guys exactly kind of what I would expect to have. So we're going to use the tracks from Gutter King, a band that I've mixed before from their Beyond Grief EP. Really cool band, you guys should check them out if you haven't. The way that they sent these files to me is I have each one of the songs from that EP, each in their own separate folder. And as you see, as I look down from here, it goes all the way from 1 all the way to 55. So this stuff here is MIDI, and we're gonna ignore the MIDI for now. Let's just focus on the WAV files. So when you load in the WAV files, it should be very, very easy for anyone who gets them to just be able to grab them and boom. So as you can see, as this track loads up, every single track starts at the exact same point in time, and every single track ends at the exact same point in time. This is incredibly crucial to be able to maintain the relative locked timing of each individual track, because a lot of the times if you don't do this and you export the tracks out, let's say these tracks right here were like this, right? You're only looking at these right here, and your tracks start here and then these tracks start here. What would happen is if you were to export all these tracks together, these two right here that are not starting at the same time, these would end up being moved over here. Therefore, it would screw up the timing of where they should actually be in the track. Hence why you want to have your in and out points for your tracks set so they're locked and they're in place each step of the way. That is step number 1, is making sure that inside that all of your tracks are locked. Step 2, I would say, is go through your naming scheme. So since we skipped the MIDI and the MIDI was 1 through 12, right here we're starting at 13. This would be the guitar stuff. You always want to make sure that you send DIs. No matter what, send DIs. No ifs, ands, or buts. Always send DIs. Always. Unless obviously you don't have DIs, but shame on you if you didn't record DIs. So here we have the DI for the left and the right. And you have the printed track. So they gave me both. They gave me the tones that they were using and the DI that I'll be able to have the flexibility to use when I mix, which part of that ends up helping the song sound more like you want it to be because you've included the production elements that you created from the beginning, like the tones. I've had my rhythms, it's organized rhythms, then into these leads. These are like, you know, your ambient atmospheric guitar tracks. So we have all these guitars, they are perfectly named. It describes what it's supposed to be. So it gives you the DI, it gives you the print, it tells you what it's for. It's very easy for me to look at it and be like, okay, this is the number of the track, the kind of track that it is, the very specific kind of track that it is in relation to that track family, and the song. Really easy for your mix engineer to be able to see what it is. The next thing is the cinematic stuff. So these are like, you know, your hits, your swells. And now we have the vocals. So, you know, you have your main 1, you have your main 2, you have what is described as your layers. Same thing for the cleans, you know, a harmony left, a harmony right, a harmony 2 left, a harmony 2 right. So all of these things are very clearly notated to where I can see and understand what it is that I'm looking at, and it'll allow me to easily go into the track and go, okay, here's guitars, okay, highlight all the guitars, create a new folder here, and name these guitars, right? Do the same thing, cinematic. And I can take all of these, create track stack, and look how easy it was to just make these folders and clean up my workspace because every single track was organized and named in a way that allowed me to be able to do this. But now let's go ahead and talk about the MIDI. I know a lot of people don't do this, but I find this to be the most efficient way to do MIDI, if you're having drums specifically, is to send every single individual articulation as a MIDI file. That's very, very important because not all drum samplers have the same ability to remap, and remapping is honestly really annoying.
No one wants to do that.
So if I'm provided with kick and snare MIDI, I can just drop this in. I can have this kick MIDI and I can put that in a main MIDI track if I want, with all the rest of the MIDI, or I could literally just use this with one sampler. Anyway, the point is you want to be able to load in every single individual MIDI track to where you'll have total and full control over what MIDI pieces you will use and which samplers you use without having to guess and going through all these other different mundane things to figure out what MIDI hit
Is which MIDI hit.
So if you just give every single MIDI hit as an individual MIDI file, it makes things a lot easier. You name them, the mix engineer knows exactly what they are, and they can use them if you want to, and they don't have to use them if they don't want to. And so after you have all of your MIDI ready to go in individual files, and you have all of your audio named, organized by sections, and numbered, then you can put them into each song folder. Song 1, Song 2, Song 3, Song 4, Song 5. And as you go through each one, the naming scheme is the same, as you can see as I cycle through each one. So then what I like to do is, let's make a new folder, BG EP. So this is the folder that you would want to send to your mix engineer. What you do then is you compress it. It's gonna take a minute. Now you have this zip file. Now you can send this via Dropbox, via Google Drive, whatever you want. Sure, you could upload this entire folder to a Google Drive, but I find that sometimes certain things won't upload and there'll be issues. So if you zip everything, you only have one file to worry about to upload, and it makes sure that, you know, you don't miss any files, nothing gets corrupted, and I've never had an issue with it. It's always foolproof for me. Make sure you send your stuff in zip files. It'll be a lot easier and your mix engineer will love you. So the reason why it's important to have your tracks formatted in a specific way for your mix engineer is because it'll allow your mix engineer to do things quicker, more efficiently, and believe it or not, it'll actually make your music sound a lot better. You might think, you know, how can that be? Well, first of all, you know, if you get your tracks consolidated and how everything is supposed to be, as I'm showing you in this video, your mix engineer is going to be able to free up mind real estate to not have to focus on all these logistical tasks, and it'll allow them to be more creative and jump right into the mixing, and they're not going to be desensitized, you know, lose direction from the song by listening to it multiple times, having to rename tracks, having to reorganize things that should have been done beforehand. Another way this will help actually improve your music and how it sounds is if you do these steps, you'll be making production decisions. As if you're a band and you're sending tracks out to a mix engineer, you're a producer, you are self-producing, therefore you're gonna make production decisions that the mix engineer won't have to make, and your music will be able to sound better, more clearer and concise to the vision that you initially had when you wrote it. I hope you really liked this video. You know, like, favorite, subscribe, it really helps. Please click the like button. I'm a small channel. I need the algorithm juice.
I need the juice.
If there's any best practices that you have and you're an audio engineer yourself and you do mixing and mastering, feel free to comment below the kind of best practices that you like to implement and send out to your clients. And if you're a client, what do you think would help you as an artist to make this go as smooth as possible? Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Yo, you see that, right? Yeah. The heck? Bruh. Bruh. Brosif Stalin.